Hello, how are you all? Thank you for coming to this open house. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the Dean of the School of International Affairs, and a number of my esteemed colleagues are also here in the audience, so I hope you can get to interact with all of them. First of all, I want to congratulate you for thinking about our institution for future studies. Um, it's full of options out there, but if you have a genuine interest in international issues, in global issues, then I dare say that we are the only option, the only game in town, so to say, especially for the undergraduate program. Can I have show of hands of BA Global Affairs applicants and okay, yeah, thank you. And masters applicants, fewer. Okay, let me briefly introduce you to the institution, and you get a better sense of us. Have all or some of you at least visited our campus? Some of you have, but not everyone. So one obvious thing I would like to say first is to invite you to visit us, and that's the beginning. And the school is now in its 8th year in functioning. We launched in 2011, so it's come a long way. We have, I think, over 250 alumni now, doing very well for themselves. We'll shortly hear about that. And the first cohort of the bachelor's program is graduating this August. So we will have in excess of 300 alumni, 320 or so by this August. So that's a fairly large accumulated experience. I still remember when we first launched this program, 2011, and we had around 40 students in the masters. At that time, we only had MA DLB, and it was seen as something new and very unique in the landscape, and there were lots of people who questioned whether there will be enough takers for this kind of niche education. So since then we have come, quite far, and now I think my last count, Swarnima, we have 250 students. What's the yeah? Yes, sir. The exact number is around, roughly 250, one or two plus or minus, and 23 full-time faculty. Just to give you a sense of the evolution, when we launched in 2011, we were 6 faculty members and 40 students. So you see the year-on-year growth in numbers. But more than numbers, I will say that we have innovated in programming, in the kind of degrees we have been offering. In fact, we did a kind of a zigzag. If you know the academic escalation, we started with a master's, came down, opened a bachelor's program, and then went back up, and only recently, 2 years ago, started a PhD program. So it's like a U-curve. That's what we have done in terms of the degree programs. And cumulatively 250 students, that's a large group of people, all devoted to and studying international affairs. Nowhere in this country is there such a collection of people. So that's an important element I want to highlight, because this field has been largely neglected. So in a sense, we have a feeling of pride that we could actually revive it and make it so big, in the sense, especially the bachelor's program. And last year the BA had over 80 students, now broken into 2 sections, A and B. This year we are looking at 100 or more, which could be 3 sections, A, B and C. The masters is now close to 45 to 50 students a year, the intake. So that includes some non-residential students who actually learn in this facility, not on the Solimar campus. So are there any in the audience who are interested in the non-residential program of the masters? We have a few. Thank you. So it's been growing, and I will simply say that we have made an effort at innovation in terms of the kind of pedagogy we do, the career support, the research agenda of our different centers. We have tried to do something off the beaten track. And that is typically the profile of our students. I see some of our senior students here working as volunteers, I think. The typical profile of our students is not the ones who are, hankering after pay packages the day they are in college and dreaming about their, what kind of salaries they'll get at the end of graduating. Of course, those do matter, but those are not the primary concerns of our students, at least not when they enter. Right? So usually, the profile of our students is a person who is committed to some public ideals, some kind of larger goals of doing some greater good, service, leadership, public office, politics, international organizations, non-profits, news media. This is usually how our students think, not necessarily the first corporate job that's available. Right? If that is the case, you should be actually applying to a business school, right? Which is the right avenue for that kind of interest. So I think we have been able to hone this service orientation and this interest in doing good, quote unquote, making the world a better place. So you have to be idealistic, frankly speaking, to enter this field. We have two very distinguished vice deans, and I'll introduce them, both of whom have served for their respective countries for decades in the diplomatic service. And they will tell you that this field, without values and ideals, and without that as a bedrock, you can never really find satisfaction in this field, because otherwise it's all very depressing, right? It's all power and deception and oppression. Of course, we study those on a day in and day out basis, but the idea is that we temper these with our value judgments and commitments to making it a better place. So that's the main thing here at JSI, and overall in JGU. We have 3,500 students in the university now.
Yes.
And expected to reach over 4,000 by August. So that's a larger universe. We are one of the smaller schools, but across all our schools there is this permeating sense of some kind of idealism. And if you see the tagline of our university, private university promoting public service, that's been the motto, and we are taken as a serious university. I would say that among the private ones that have emerged in this country over the last 20 years, since the liberalization began of the education sector, we are among, I would say, among the top 3 or 4 in terms of being seen as a serious institution that's engaged in serious learning and honing of students' abilities, as in like an intellectual place. There are a number of private universities that are heavy into advertising and low on substance. I'm sorry to say this. And I'm sure you have all evaluated the field before deciding to apply to Jindal. So in a way, I'm like preaching to the choir because you have already taken an interest in the institution. But still, I want to emphasize the fact that choosing a university and college is not an easy task when you have to separate the grain from the chaff. So this is a kind of a winnowing process, and one of the reasons we called for this open house was to get to know you so that you get to know this institution better. What are the highlights? I will say that we have one, obviously graduated lots of students who are doing well for themselves. 2, our scholarly output. I think that is something worth mentioning. That's something we're very proud of. Almost every faculty member has a number of singly authored monographs and journal articles, and are influencing public opinion on major international issues. Our faculty are on television. Our faculty are, generating opinions and shaping the minds of people across the world, not just in India. So that is our strength. And I invite you all to interact with our faculty during this open house today. Quite a few of them are here. I'll say that student involvement in research is another thing that I can attest to. A number of our students are engaged in supporting faculty who are writing books, supporting faculty who are running major externally funded and grant-based projects, and who are in the process learning. There are quite a few of our students, even at the bachelor's level, who are already publishing and giving their opinions on various issues internationally. So that makes it a very vibrant, intellectually strong community. Then there are a number of students who actually have brought honor to the institution by participating in international events and winning major competitions, laurels, awards, and such things. And that shows that our training is working. That's how we measure it. Apart from this, I'll say that the interdisciplinary nature of the university is important. JGU as a whole, which has 7 schools, we are among one of the smaller schools, encourages the interdisciplinary learning. We have plenty of elective options for students. For bachelor's, it starts from year 2, year 3, sorry. So year 3 onwards, you start choosing electives. But for masters, it starts from second semester itself, in year 1. And there, unlike traditional universities where every department or school is compartmentalized from the other, and there's hardly any crossover, we enable our students to actually take large numbers of electives. In fact, there is no numerical limit on how many electives a student can take outside her own school, provided they are justified. In other words, there must be some kind of fit. So for example, if you are doing a BA in Global Affairs and you say, I want to go and do an elective on competition law, for example. It sounds like a bit of a stretch. Competition law in India. Right now, there's hardly any fit, and I don't see how these two can be justified as in some ways tangential or intersecting. But if you are a school of, if you are a student of BA Global Affairs, and you say, I'm interested in the law of United Nations peacekeeping, which is being taught in the law school, it makes more sense, logically speaking. Right? If you say you're a student of masters in diplomacy and you want to do a course on corporate mergers and acquisitions globally, international, then it makes sense that you go do that in our business school. If you want to specialize in human rights issues, for example, it makes sense. There are a number of such courses being offered outside our school. If someone says, I'm interested in environmental negotiations, Ambassador Mohan Kumar was instrumental in during the Paris climate change negotiations. He was India's ambassador to France at the time in 2015. So we have in-house expertise, but also people teaching environmental politics and environmental regulation and energy and environment and these kind of courses outside our own school, but within the university. So what I'm saying is, these 23 people we have here are our core strength. But then, if you look at it from a university point of view, the elective options, you may be actually exposed to 50 or 60 scholars in the course of your 2 or 3 years, provided you take those options. There are some students who do most of the electives within our own school, some who actually take quite a few outside, and there is a high level of flexibility on these matters. And we look at concentration as a criterion for this. If a student is saying he's very, very passionate about nuclear proliferation and nuclear energy and renewables. Now, there may not be a lot of courses on renewable energy in our school. In fact, we don't do that. But there are environmentalists in the School of Public Policy who could offer courses on this field. And you could mix and match all these. And what we do as faculty, as academic, our deans do is to advise students on the elective choices. So that way you have a kind of a planned curriculum, right? So what you see in the brochures and on the website is limited only to the in-house courses that we have among our core faculty. But what you don't see there are the wider options that are available at the university, in other schools, which you get to know anyway in the first 2 semesters or so. In fact, the first whole year, the undergraduate students don't have electives. So you have a set curriculum. But after that, you start moving in that direction. So that's another big advantage. I think the interdisciplinary nature, you see the same issue from different angles. Now, I remember a few years ago, and some of you might have followed this, maritime piracy off the coast of the Gulf of Aden, or what is today Yemen and Somalia. This had become a massive issue of international concern about 7 to 8 years ago. And I'm just citing that example. I remember the early batches of MADLB, there was an interest among students for studying something like this. But we wanted them to understand not just the security aspect of maritime problems like piracy, but also the legal ones. So we had colleagues in the law school who are working on issues like prosecution of pirates who are captured by multinational navies. They would be often taken to Kenya or Tanzania, the nearest Eastern African coast states, and they would then be released because the legal systems there were incapable of handling this particular category of international crimes of piracy. So resolving the problem obviously means you need to see all the sides of the picture. So those kind of things you get at Jindal. And similarly, any problem, terrorism, for example, right? And you cannot actually completely bifurcate it from human rights and democracy and political freedoms, and possibly even economic development, right? So you can't simply do a course on counter-terrorism and intelligence, which we can do. We offer courses on national security and national international security, but you will need to do other courses across the aisle in other schools to be able to get a rounder understanding of these problems. I would say the internships over the summer and the career support has been getting better and better every year. We now have 2 dedicated people working only on this, and I think there are some alumni voices and so on that you will watch. We have created some videos of all of them. But the main thing is student preference and matching it to organizations, setting them up for internship. This is like day in and out. In fact, this morning I did a review meeting on the internship situation for the junior students. As far as the graduating students are concerned, we do support them on an individual basis and try to set up interviews for them in various organizations. Often it's on a reference basis. I want you to understand this. Some of you may not be familiar with this, because in India the landscape and the discourse is dominated by business schools. There is this tendency to talk about a campus placement, right? That phrase is commonly used. Now, it happens, but in other schools of our university, not in JSI. Simply because there is no such systematic and institutional mechanism where organizations, non-profit or for-profit, governmental, non-governmental, intergovernmental, who come and recruit from a single place. It just doesn't happen that way. Rather, what happens is, there is a position available in a certain embassy based in Vasant Bihar here, where they are looking for a researcher or an analyst. They are contacting us, we are contacting them. We pre-select some students based on their abilities and the fit, and we forward the CVs and they go get interviewed in the embassy. The embassy is not going to come and say, okay, I'm going to do campus placements and let me interview 20 people today on campus. That's just not how it works. Right? So I want to alert you to this dynamic, because the mainstream thinking, especially about private universities, is driven by the business school logic, which doesn't quite operate in this field. Right? So I'm forewarning you. so that you have a different set of expectations from the outset about this. So what do we give? High quality knowledge, uh, raise your analytical abilities, link you up with organizations, provide internships, and then try to set you up with some organizations that fall within your general zone of interest by the time you graduate, then you go for an interview. Beyond that, I think that most of our best students, our good students, always have no problems finding jobs after they graduate. So it's a question of the institution acting as some kind of a connecting link. So that role we play. And what else? I'll say that our location, and let me say a few things. Some of you have been to campus, some of you have not. I think we are one of the best maintained campuses in this country. Recently, the government of India gave us the #1 ranking under the Swachh Bharat rankings for universities. So, we do have flaws. I'm sure you may have spotted some, but it's a relative thing. If we are #1, then you must see some other campuses and then make a relative judgment, a comparative judgment. I think in terms of infrastructure and facilities, we've come a very long way. We've just inaugurated a Olympic-sized swimming pool. Just to mention a highlight, I think in terms of sports, in terms of extracurricular societies, is Nicholas here? He's out. We've just launched a new club of our own students called Diplomania, where they engage in series of co-curricular activities for learning, but outside classroom, quizzes and competitions and debates. So there's a lot happening, and I would say the wider campus, you will see the evenings, because it's a residential campus, in a way it's like a captive audience and you have nowhere to go. That's the community, right? 3,500 people, and many of us faculty live on campus or around campus. So there's a lot happening in terms of engagement and scholarship and learning. So I will simply say that, let me just stop here for a while by simply saying that we take ourselves seriously, and this is not a gimmick, and this is not some kind of a, there are lots of institutions that are known to be, promising the moon and the stars and disappointing students. Ours is a far more modest effort, but something that we have built up over time. And now the university as a whole is almost a decade old. KSIA is 7 years old. So the accumulated experience is helping us to try. We do regular curriculum reviews. In fact, the last faculty meeting we had, we are now revising slightly the BA GA curriculum, which will commence in August. Masters also, we had innovated. Initially we used to have 8 core courses. Entire first year was mandatory, and they could do electives only in year 2. Then we scaled it back and we turned into 4 core courses in semester 1, and then the remaining 3 semesters you have electives or dissertation at the end. So constantly we are trying to, I would say, improvise based on evolving trends and student preferences. And one thing I will say, and our students, we have even our student council president is here. We are a very democratic institution that always is far more receptive to student issues than a typical Indian university. So in that sense, I'll say that the degree of responsiveness to student issues and problems is much higher. Just to give you an example, we have something called at a micro level, something called a student-faculty interaction committee, where our faculty regularly solicit views from students about what's going right, what's not, what are the problems, how can we fix them, and so on. So these are the means by which we are able to create a continuous democratic feedback loop. And it goes in I would like to call it like a virtuous circle. So that helps, because that's how we are able to, for example, as I said, change the curriculum, tweak it here and there. We have freedom because as a private university, that's governed by the Haryana Private Universities Act. We don't rely on any kind of external committees and regulatory bodies to design our own curriculum or to change it. So that way we are more adaptable, unlike public institutions. If you go to public institutions and take up this study, anyway it's not available at the bachelor's level, but even if you're doing it at the master's level, you will find that there are curricula that have been received from 10 years or 15 years ago and are still being taught without a single word being changed in the curriculum. And the reason for it is the bureaucracy, where some committee that sat in 2006 decided that this should be the curriculum for international organizations course, and that's how it should be. The problem is that so much has changed in such a dynamic real world that it just looks obsolete like a dinosaur. So curricular innovation is another thing. It's an advantage, I would say, and that means that you have the chance to do state-of-the-art things. Now, if the Cambridge Analytica scandal has generated mass discontent about privacy and about manipulation of data and fixing of elections and these kind of things, and about the veracity of a democracy itself. Surely, if there is a sufficient number of students interested in these kind of topics, we can actually create an elective for it around it, right? And that kind of that's the democratic feedback loop I mentioned. We have always looked up to parents and guardians of students, and we have, especially the undergraduate level, there is a greater degree of flow about feedback about how the wards are doing. Master's level tend to be generally very organized. There's no time issue, no discipline issues, and most of them are on like auto mode, and they don't require. I can't recall the last time I spoke to the parent of a master's student, but we do get to speak to a lot of parents of undergraduate students. They're younger, first time probably out of high school, and in a free place without any monitoring day in and out by parents. So it's a bit of an adjustment university. So those of you who are finishing high school, it's a bit of a challenge to, especially in a university like ours where all the faculty have worked overseas, studied overseas, taught overseas, and they bring that kind of a different kind of interactive concepts into classroom. Most of the courses we teach, I think 15-20 or more percent is based on participation. The grade is broken up, and the final exam will be only 30% of the grade. So what does it mean? That means that we encourage and want you to speak up a lot more and to argue and debate in class. So it's a different pedagogy altogether. It's a different, I would say, universe from the mainstream Indian established system, where it's a rote learning and where it's textbook based, and where the professor is coming and saying, okay, now open, I don't know, chapter 27, and today we're going to study chapter 27. Right? We study an issue, and we may refer to multiple chapters from multiple sources. So it's a completely different ball game, and it requires some kind of an adjustment. And most of our students do that, and I'm happy to report generally the grade point averages and the pass percentages have been rising in every batch. Masters, we never have an issue of failure at all, but bachelors we do have some, and on those we have a year-back policy. If you're interested, I can go into details, but essentially, to give you in a nutshell, if there are students who are failing 5 out of 10 or 50% of the total courses in year 1, then they will not move to year 2. They will be held back until they clear the resits, or in some extraordinary cases even have to be let go on a full basis. So these kind of things, I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but you're welcome to ask us more about academic governance and these kind of things. But overall, I would say that it's a well thought out, it was an experiment, but a well thought out experiment, and we are happy that it is clicked. because initially I said there were a lot of skeptics that this kind of education will have no takers in India, where the tunnel vision is always, technology and management and engineering and that's all matters. But our constituency has grown. More and more people are interested in looking at these kind of offbeat options, and now I would say we have become a mainstream in this field, because the nearest I can think, the School of International Studies in JNU, which has only a master's program, I don't think has in total, they have even 150 students? 120 at any given time. And we are talking about 300 plus in the SIA. So, especially because of the bachelor's program, which is an innovation. So this is large, and in a way, from the outlier, we have become the mainstream. And some of you may have applied to other private universities which are good, but I'm at the risk of sounding immodest, I would say that they are not as good as us in this field, right? And in fact, so you can think about an Ashoka University or a Shiv Nadar or some other private ones, and some of you may have applied. They are good, but not in the field of international affairs. Maybe they are good in liberal arts, maybe they are good in some applied sciences. So it's if you got your these programs are for young people who have made up their minds that they really love world affairs and they want to get deeper and deeper into it. Right? If you're unsure about it, maybe thinking, oh, maybe I should do law or maybe I should do liberal arts, then there are other options. So ideally, this is for, and in a kind of a distilled version, this course these programs are all based on economics and politics, primarily. To some extent, maybe history, but primarily economics and politics. So this is the common denominator, right? So you got to love those things in order to enjoy this program, especially these two. Economics, politics, sociology and history are offered on the side, but I would say that essentially international studies is a subfield of political science or political economy. So if you really enjoy politics and economics, and you want to see how these come together to construct this so-called international order or international community, this is the place where you can really get the hang of it. Okay, I think I spoke a lot, and I'll request my colleagues to also chip in. Maybe I request our vice deans to say a few words. Ambassador Mohan.
Thank you very much, Sriram. Very briefly, I spent a lifetime in the Foreign Service, and when I joined the Jindal University, I didn't know what to expect. I don't have an academic background for 20-30 years like many others, but I do have a lot of experience in diplomacy. But I would say the following: I think I found the students extremely motivated, and if I were to take off from where the dean left, the following traits I think are extremely important if you are interested in the BA Global Affairs. First, I think you should be passionate about international relations. I think you should be an extrovert. Your communication skills should be better than average. And more than anything else, you should have a clear understanding of India's foreign policy and situating India in the context of the world. So if you are into these things, I would say this is the course for you. I'll also be honest before I pass it on to other colleagues. I think I would be dishonest if I said we would be imparting knowledge or information that will keep you in good stead over the next 20 years. I believe that no university can do this because knowledge and the world itself is changing so fast. So I believe the skills that we are imparting in a student who at least comes to this kind of a course is the following. One, I think, is an ability to judge international events and draw inferences. Second, to make up your mind on the basis of available evidence, which is less than perfect. You're never going to have all the available information. You're always going to be short of time. You're going to be under pressure. So how do you make up your mind within those limitations? And finally, really to make your judgments all by yourself, the spirit of inquiry, to be open to other ideas other than your own, and to then make up your mind. So those are the skills, I think, which will last the pupil in good stead, rather than just me saying that, Prime Minister Modi met the Russian president in Sochi and such a thing is happening. That's okay, that's current affairs. But I think what you take from that event in terms of inference and what is the trend and where is India's global trajectory, those are the kind of discussions, at least I'm speaking from my narrow perspective because I teach diplomatic practice. So we get into those kind of things. I think at least in my class I also get into things like why did Devyani Khobragade, if you remember, why was she strip searched? What is the implication in terms of what is the immunity that diplomats enjoy or don't enjoy? So those kind of practical things we teach. But I think the Dean is absolutely right. This is a class or a course for students who are, I think, wiser beyond their years, who have already made up their minds that this is the area I want to focus on. Very briefly, in terms of what you can do after this, one, of course, if you continue to be passionate about international affairs, obviously you don't stop at BAGA. You go on to do something else. We would like to believe that you will be eminently qualified to go abroad. We've got a few collaboration programs with Fletcher's and Oxford and some others. So that is one thing that we would encourage, especially if you are absolutely passionate about international relations. Secondly, I think NGOs and think tanks are still in their infancy in this country. We think, or at least I think, that this is going to grow exponentially and we do not have enough people who are qualified. At the risk of being immodest, I also had a think tank called Research and Information System for Developing Countries, RIS, which is based in the Habitat Center. We are recruiting people and I'm sorry to say, we simply cannot find young people who are qualified. We get sometimes middle-aged and older people. But young people, say 28, 30, Carnegie has just started in Delhi, Brookings has started in Delhi, you've got ORF. Think tanks are just beginning to take off in India. And it's still very, very Delhi-centric, by the way. I'm from the south. So really, it doesn't represent the country at all. So that's an area which is very, very interesting. The other area where I think Indians have not done enough is really join NGOs, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch. We just don't have enough Indians who have joined these organizations, done field work in Africa. Because of what the Dean said, every parent wants their girl or boy to be an engineer or a doctor or whatever. Finally, I've also established a group called Friends of Civil Service, and I encourage people to join the Foreign Service, and I think it's a fantastic career if you are lucky enough to make the exam, and the exam is a bit of a lottery. You know that, I know that. But I think it is a great service that one should be considering as well. So thank you for the attention.
Yes, good afternoon or good evening. I don't know what time it is now. Dr. Amora. I studied at Oxford, London, JNU. I was a former ambassador in a number of countries, including India, some time ago. And I also was the Vice Foreign Minister of Syria, which means I am academic part. Before I joined the military, the diplomatic career back in 1980, I was also teaching at universities. I was in charge basically in Syria, Middle East and Europe relations, from political and economic relations. And when we speak about Europe, we do not speak at that time, only Western Europe, but it was Western and Eastern Europe, that is before which now is still going on. As a matter of fact, before coming here, we had this evening, I can say three lunches. One lunch with a number, together with my colleagues, the Dean, the Vice Dean, and the Dean of the Diplomatic Corps and other ambassadors, who were really interested in knowing what is this JOB, Jindal Global University, and they were very interested in having some information, some programs, and then I went to meet a number of some businessmen, heads of a number of industrialists and big businessmen. Upon their invitation, I went there, and I didn't know was this invitation for, but I said, yes, I will go. And they said, by the way, Dr. Amora, former ambassador, we heard OB Jindal Global University is going and gaining a very good, reputation. I said, that's you. And that's why we were asked to introduce my colleagues, a number of business. What are you doing there? So actually, if you want to understand the future of the world you have to understand international relations. Future of the world lies and rests in the future international relations and how the future of the world is being shaped now with a number of conflicts, Politics and economics very important, security is very important. So this is more important than law. If people would be, ask me, more important than literature. Yes, they are important. But the future is international relations. And international relations is also international issues. There is always international issues, global issues, and international relations. Global issues, there are issues very important which shape and give the picture of international relations. And this is a place where we are now trying to give. Teaching, I have been in this university. After I retired, of course, people asked for 2.5 years as a vice dean, teaching also diplomatic practice, teaching politics of the Middle East, teaching also war and peace, negotiations, and teaching Arabic. Arabic is also, very important for young Indians going to work somewhere in the Gulf and so on. The best something, do you know Arabic? Do you know something? Can you communicate with the people? This is also credit. You understand the culture, the politics, the way people think. So I feel that we are trying to do something. But I can admit that I learned a lot also during these 2.5 years. Because teaching is not only giving, but also taking, give and take. So in that sense, you see how people or students think, and then what is the dilemma for them, and you try also to answer and to take from them in a very, very good syllabus, very good also a practice with the colleagues that we have, and that is very, very useful and very great speaking to you, listening to you, also, and meeting you. Anybody else? Thank you.
So we'll just briefly, each faculty member will introduce himself and herself, and then we'll take questions from you because I'm sure you have questions on the issues. So Professor Mohan Kawar has already introduced himself. He was India's former ambassador to the WTO, and he was India's former ambassador to France, Paris. Professor Amura has also introduced himself. He was the Deputy Foreign Minister of Syria. He was ambassador to a number of countries, including India. And I will now begin from the last row.
My name is Deep Dattare. I'm an associate professor at JSI.
Tridivesh Singh Maini. I'm an assistant professor at JSI.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to JSI in Delhi. My name is Rohi Das Gupta. I'm the convener of the Jindal Center for Israel Studies and executive director for the Center for European Studies. You have listened to my esteemed colleagues here. Beyond your thematic studies and, of course, knowing the basics of international relations, it's very important to know interdisciplinary regional studies and geopolitical studies. That is what we intend to do in our centers. And we encourage you to think interdisciplinary, travel to these places, and engage with institutions which specialize in various things, not only conflict, but also society, culture, as well as understanding the transformation, the democratic transformations of various regions. So there will be plenty of food for thought for you as you join the course, and I wish you the very best for a very bright future.
Good evening, I'm Raghav. I'm also an associate professor at JSIA. I head the Center for Afghanistan Studies, and I wish you all the very best, and I look forward to seeing most of you in August.
Hi everybody, I am Dr. Pankaj Jha. Before teaching the kids, preparing their minds, I was Director of Research with the foremost think tank of MEA, and frankly speaking, we prepare mind warriors, warriors which can fight for the nation and national interest at the international level. What will be your future? What do you want to do with your future? Depends on your capacities, capabilities, and will. We built the perfect person who can play at the highest level with the best of his abilities. Thank you very much, and welcome to JSIA.
Good evening, my name is Gerenci Redeko. I come from Hungary, from Eastern Europe. I belong to the 50% of the faculties in our schools which are not Indians. I am a historian, a relief among the many of the political scientists and ambassadors and diplomats. I am the person who will present you everything in process and in progress. My dissertation is about the European Union, and I was surprised that many people are interested in the European integration, so I will strengthen the knowledge on the European Union studies.
Hi, my name is Dagin Paul Kipkin. I'm a Burmese American. I'm Associate Professor at JSIA. I am the Executive Director for Center for Southeast Asian Studies. At the moment, I'm writing a book on South China's disputes. I have some research assistants from JSIA. And if you come to Jindal, like the Dean said, we are coming from different backgrounds. For example, we come from Europe, North America, South America, and different parts of the world. We try to bring all those experiences in our networks and try to link our students to those networks. So some of you might be interested in those areas, and we are there to help you. So all the best to you, and we look forward to having you in our campus.
My name is Mohsen, and I worked as a corporate banker in Dubai for a few years before I joined JSIA. I've been here 7 years. I'm an assistant professor, and I run the Center for a New South Asia. South Asia, for those of you who are not familiar, is the region that we are part of, India, Pakistan, Nepal, so on. So I would like to open up for questions, and if somebody would like to break the ice. Yeah, sure. You have a mic? Each one has a mic in front of them. If they can use that, that would be great.
I'm a master's student. The research process, is it mostly empirical? Like, do I have to use a lot of SPSS, or do I get to use literature from JSTOR or maybe a few research? Like, is it aimed only towards empirical values, or is it a mix of empirical and literature?
That's a great question. We have both kinds of research. Empirical, you seem to think that empirical is only quantitative. Empirical can be quantitative, you're right, and it's great if you acquire SPSS skills. We have a course on research methods, which does quantitative and qualitative research methods. We also allow you to take courses in econometrics in the School of Public Policy, if you're interested in that, and that's great, because as they say in the Pentagon, some numbers are better than no numbers. So though international affairs, things can't be quantified in precisely the same fashion as, say, for example, in economics. But my professor at Johns Hopkins, Elliot Cohen, always said, some numbers are better than no numbers, and he knew what he was talking about because he worked at the Pentagon. So we have that. We have quantitative analysis, we have qualitative analysis, and literature review. All of that is there. It depends upon your interest. Not everybody can handle the quantitative part, so we don't force students to do that.
Hi, this was a very high-level question which that child asked. So but mine is also related to research actually, because we have applied for other universities also for that undergraduate program. And one of the universities providing a research in undergraduate. The last year is the research-based in undergraduate. So I wanted to know how do you compare your course with that course which they are providing?
The last year of undergraduate. See, research is a component in many of the courses that you will take, and there is a dissertation option. So in the last semester, you can take a dissertation option and we will waive 2 of your courses in lieu of your dissertation. And it's negotiable. You can also do more. You can do independent studies with specific professors. If you have a project in mind and the professor approves of it, you can do an independent study. So there are many options for research if you are interested in research. Not every student is, and we don't force at the undergrad level. Even at the master's level, it's optional. In the master's level, you can devote an entire semester. Your final semester can be just a thesis. And actually, it's a great idea because it can help you get a job. Because when you focus into one area and you write a good enough thesis, that is basically an advertisement. You advertise yourself to a future potential employer.
Good evening. In fact, my daughter was also supposed to come. She has already accepted the MA-DLB offer of Jindal, and essentially she's interested in the civil services exam. But I'm just curious to know that if at some stage she would be wishing to take the UGC NET route, is that open to the MA-DLB students?
It absolutely is. There is a NET exam in international affairs. And
there is no qualificational debarring or
no, it's a recognized university by it's a government recognized. Jindal is not.
I'm specifically on the course title DLB and.
Yeah, you can appear for an international affairs NET exam, and it's not a deemed university. It is a university by charter from the legislature of Haryana, so it's a government university. It's not a deemed university. But if you have questions on the IAS or the IFS civil services.
No, as I said, my daughter's goal or focus is very clear. She either wishes to pursue a career in civil services or she wishes to go into academics. But then, as you said, incidentally, I'm also a civil servant. So it's a roll of dice, so you never know where you end up in that process. So I just wanted to be very clear that the research route in other universities at the MPhil and PhD level is open to her after undergoing this course.
Professor Kumar actually individually consults many students who are appearing for civil services. Okay. And we have a civil services coaching institute on campus. So on weekends, Saturday and Sunday, there are classes.
Okay, thank you.
So my general advice is if you're really keen or if your daughter or your son is keen about the civil service, take it as early as you can. I mean, I was not particularly thrilled to know that the topper of the batch has taken the exam in the 5th attempt. You will probably retire as a joint secretary to the government of India. You know what I'm talking about. It's ridiculous. In ours, when I joined in 1981, if you're more than 26 years, you couldn't take the civil service exam. I wish we had pursued that. Now there are people taking it at 30 years and 40 years, and 40 is an exaggeration, but 30 plus seems to be common. But the retirement age has not changed. You still have to go home at 60. And in the government, it's not Pepsi Cola that I can give you a promotion and make you a secretary to the government at 40 years. So if it was your daughter, my frank advice would be she should take the civil service straight away.
Yeah,
because anyway she has to take it for 2 or 3 times. I wouldn't recommend taking it for 5 times. But at least take it twice so that you kind of cancel out the luck factor. It is an exam which is a bit of a lottery. But otherwise, waiting forever and then taking it at 28 years makes no sense
quite true.
all.
So I just wanted to be very clear that the course is aligned to her objective and then the plan B as well.
I think the course is aligned to one of the subjects that she can take for the civil service exam. But then there will be people who will take higher Marathi literature and take the exam. That's the problem we have in the country today. But that's something that we all have to live with, I suppose. But the MA-DLB is good for your other objective of your daughter as well, which is academics, I think it's a great course for that.
One question, yeah?
Now, can I just add something about my experience also on the recruitment of diplomats, I remember very well that there were there was once upon a time a competition for recruiting about 50 diplomats to the Syrian Foreign Service. And about 4,000 students applied, participated, and in the end we got 50. But some of those who did not pass, imagine, they went abroad and they participated in recruitment of international organizations, and they succeeded. And they came back to Syria as Vice Prime Minister, and now they are working in ESQA and in the World Bank as experts, and so always competitions in this depends on the concentration, how you do, what the type. And most of those students, the 3,000, started working, on intensive training programs, exams, and so on. So these were combined in a book, actually, what to do, where to do, how to avoid, how to succeed, which fortunately I combined it. Thank you.
Like your daughter, my son is also interested in the civils. But as of now, of course, things change over the next 3 years. It's not really focused. And the United Nations. Now, in the civils, if he wishes to take it by the end of his 3rd year, I'm also a civil servant, and I took it in my first year MA, and I cleared it at the first course. So I was through at a very young age. So that's what I tell him. But what subject could he take if he does BA Global Affairs? What subject could he take in the civils as an optional?
Yeah, so there are two theories about this, and you should know it as an or as a civil servant. The logical choice would be political science IR. Okay. That makes a lot of sense with the BAGA. But I always tell students, I should tell you my background. I didn't clear it the first time. So I cleared it the second time. The first time I got railways or something, I was not.
I'm a railway officer.
You are a railway officer. So
so
the first time I took management because I was an MBA from FMS Delhi. Okay. I didn't do so great. I got the railways, but I didn't do so great. So at the time when I consulted a coaching institution, they said you should take a subject which you have never done before. So I took history, psychology, and got a very good rank the second time, and I got what I wanted. So my general sense is that you must really be smart about this exam. This exam is not about great IQ, to be honest.
No, absolutely.
The IIT exam and the others are different. This is about being absolutely street smart about the exam. Yeah. So if you're passionate about a subject, I always tell students do that, because then it is very easy to study for a subject in which you're passionate. If you're not, it becomes a chore. And then it causes no end of problems. This exam calls for 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration, whatever.
That's the reason I didn't take it again.
Exactly. So, you really have to slog over a long period of time. So, having done BAGA, if the person finds that he has to choose something other than international relations or political science, that's fine too. So, I think that is an option. I think
And the UN, how would he get into the UN?
So, I'll be less than honest if I said, if you belong to the male sex and you are an Indian, you can virtually forget about the UN. You are talking about a person. Anyway, I will talk to you later, maybe personally. I've lost out so many times. But if you're a female, you have half a chance because of gender equality opportunity. The problem with Indians is we are highly overrepresented in the UN. So I should be honest about that. I think you can still make it, but I think Mohsin may have something more sensible to add.
So one of my closest friends is in the UN, and he's Indian and he's male. And
but that's the reason why others can't get in.
And there is a way to get in. The way to get in is you have to do 2-3 things, and you have to be smart about it. First, you have to pick up a couple of international languages, UN languages. He spoke French, he spoke Japanese, he spoke Arabic. He was very good, he was a smart guy. And he worked for TCS. Initially, he was posted in Egypt, so he picked up Arabic. Second thing he did was he loved international affairs. He loved he loved violence. So he went everywhere where the UN was holding an election. The UN needs volunteers. And volunteering might look to you like, it's a no good job, but it's actually a great job because you come on the UN roster. The moment you volunteer as an election observer in Sudan or election observer in Afghanistan, you go there. You don't get paid much. They just cover your costs. They pay. But you come on the UN roster. And he applied every year, he applied for every UN job that he could. And very soon the UN took him, and he was taken as a permanent staff, which is rare. And he's in the political division. He worked 3 years in Kunduz. He worked 3 years in Kabul. He worked 4 years in Baghdad in the most difficult circumstances. And now he's sitting in Manhattan at the UN headquarters.
There's still hope.
There's hope, but as a mother, Sudan and Baghdad and all have just put me off.